Okay, so welcome everybody to our session on virtual Girl Scouting, how, why, and what it is. As I said, we are recording the call, so if you are not able to stay on for the entire time, or if you want to share it with somebody, we will be able to share it in the future. So why virtual Girl Scouting, even when the pause is over? Virtual Girl Scouting is a great way to engage girls who are distant and who cannot get to the meeting, to engage Juliet's. I'm just hesitating because my PowerPoint is not advancing to the next slide. Or even to engage during times of bad weather. It's also a great way to connect with busy parents. Face-to-face meetings are always preferred, at least one time per year, but often it's more convenient to meet virtually. Troops could connect over the summer virtually, especially if their troop isn't usually active then. You can just do a brief check-in to see how everyone is doing and to help them get excited again for Girl Scouts in the fall. Girls who participate in virtual Girl Scouting get to practice effective time management and utilize sharpened digital skills. And it's affordable for parents. It saves time, money, and also the commute to the meetings. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Elena. Hopefully I can forward the slide again. Look at that. It works perfectly. Elena, take over.
Hi, everybody. So let's talk about the platform that you're going to use when doing these virtual meetings. So virtual meetings can look like a lot of things, and it can include things like emailing resources to your girls to have them work on it outside of that. I'm going to talk specifically today about video conferencing as your platform for your virtual meetings. So we have a few options up here for you, including Google Hangouts. So to utilize this, you are going to need everyone to have a Gmail account, but the account and the Hangout is free. There's no time limit on this. You can also use Microsoft Teams. Similar to Hangouts, this requires everyone to have a 365 account through Office. You can also utilize Zoom. It has gained a lot of popularity in the past few months or so. Anyone is able to set up a free account. With a free account, there is a 40-minute time limit. I have heard from some folks that this time limit may be waived amidst current times. You'll have to kind of test it out when you go in. There is a waiting room option. So what you can do is you can log in, get all set up as the leader, and then allow the girls to all come in at a separate time. This is a unique feature only to Zoom. There is also a recommendation for this one because there have been some hacking situations in the past with Zoom to utilize a password to make sure that it is a little bit more difficult for folks who aren't part of your group to get in. This is a new security feature that Zoom has introduced. Another option is GoToWebinar. So this is free to use, but you do have to make an account. You can schedule meetings ahead of time, which is helpful for your kids. And this is actually the platform we're using tonight, so you can see that you have the ability to share your screen. So if you're wanting to teach a specific skill. You also have a screen share option with Zoom, and unfortunately, I'm not sure if you have that option with Hangouts or Teams. Another resource that you can use is Facebook Live or Facebook Messenger. So for Facebook Live, you would have to have your own account, and what you would do is you would just set yourself to go live. So that way your girls can check in, say if you have a group page on Facebook for just your troop. Another option is Facebook Kids. This is a specific messenger program that Facebook has launched for girls who are not on Facebook or not old enough to be on Facebook yet. It would be a special app. The parents do have to have a Facebook account, and then you can set up this messenger on whatever kind of platform the kids can use, either a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop. They can all chat back and forth together, and then there is a group video option that you can utilize. to make sure that you're chatting with all of your girls at the same time. When you upload this program, you want to make sure to use, it's like a little chat bubble with a plus in the top right hand corner to create a group that you'll be able to add all of the girls to. So now that we kind of talked about the platform that we're going to use, let's talk about what our program is going to look like. The great news is almost all of Girl Scouting can be done virtually. So you can work on badges together, fun patches, volunteer projects, or higher awards mentoring. There are some badges that you might find a bit easier to do at home than other projects. Part of that might be finding badges where the girls can do some independent work ahead of time before they come onto the meeting, and then do a bit of a show and tell, which we'll get into what that looks like a little bit later on in our workshop today. But to kind of chat about what some of those easy badges might look like for you. Could be things, for example, if you're working with a Daisy troop, something like the trail adventure, where you can teach them about the trails, give them resources, and then have them go do a trail trip with their family. For the brownie badge, something like My Family Story or My Best Self, which is very internally focused on the girls, is helpful. They can do some work at home and then do a share with the group. I do have a full list that we will happily send out to everyone who's on this call, so you can see if you don't have one of the levels that I mentioned here. This is also a great time for any of our girls, like I said, who are working on their higher awards, to start doing some discuss and prep and research so they can feel ready to work on that higher award, whether that's bronze, silver, or gold. And then now we kind of touched on what that programming looks like, let's talk about getting into your meeting. So there is some prep that you're going to want to do for this. Mina, do you mind advancing to the next slide? Great. So what you want to do is start off with a parent meeting, pretty similar to getting your troop together for the first time. You can then utilize the parents to kind of work through some of those tech issues ahead of time. Figure out, make sure that the app works, it's downloaded on the computer so the girls don't get frustrated ahead of time. If you are working with older girls, say high school group, they're probably already working on a lot of this tech with school and might already have a good handle on it. You also want to establish some parent expectations. So are the parents going to be responsible for getting the girls set up, or is that on the girls' responsibility? If you're utilizing email, talk about the parents' expectations to push things over to the girls. Then we have the material for the girls. So you want to make sure to touch base both with your girls and yourself about what materials you want to use. So if you're working on a project that, say, you're gonna melt some crayons, so you want to make sure that everybody in their household has both crayons and a hairdryer to work with. Where everyone might have a hairdryer, but say you don't have crayons, you can maybe drop the crayons off at people's houses if you're close by and it's easy for them. You could mail them, and don't forget that if you do mail anything during this time, you can use troop funds for that. So don't feel like that needs to come out of your pocket. You also want to figure out how often you want to hold meetings. Very often we see these meetings run a little bit shorter than normal. So some girls want to hold meetings more often. Other girls might not have the bandwidth to increase meetings or might want to have less meetings. So check in with your girls to see what that comfortable space is on your meeting frequency. And then the last one is, if your daughter is also in your troop, try to have her set up on a separate piece of tech for herself. So give her your smartphone if you're working on a laptop. Obviously, if you don't have this potential to use, we understand that's totally okay. But giving her that separate tech allows her to feel like she is in the same boat with all of the other girls. They're working together, and that way she can work through the material at the same speed as the other girls, and allows you to focus on leading the troop. Then I'm going to pass it over to Sarah to talk a little bit about your agenda.
Hello. With the agenda, you could post a half sheet ahead of time so the girls and parents know what to expect for the evening. And I think it's important to try to keep the agenda similar to what would be an actual in-person meeting. So whatever you normally do for your opening activity, whether it's the pledge, the promise and law, or a song, it's important for the girls to continue with that routine. And depending on the age of the girls, you may want to share your screen and have either a picture of the flag so they can do the pledge, or post the promise and law so they can follow along. If they're very young and haven't quite memorized it yet, you might want to say a line and have them repeat it back to you, similar to a meeting. And then you would get into your discussion, and the first few meetings with the girls might just be them checking in with each other, especially if they haven't seen each other in a while, and sort of catching up with what's going on with everyone. You would want to explain your activity to the parents and the girls, have a model you can show them so they know what it's going to look like. It is hard to do some activities from home without that in-person guidance, so the parents having an example to look at would be very helpful. When you do your closing, most troops, I think, close with a friendship circle or a song, so you would want to come up with an alternative plan for the friendship circle. Some of the troops with younger girls have had them either hug a stuffed animal, or they could still cross their arms and think a good thought with their friends. You could also still do capers for the girls, especially with the video meeting. If you are going to do, the promise and law, the pledge, and things like that, the girls could still lead them, and that kind of gives them some ownership over their own meeting. It is important for them to know, like Elena said, these meetings will probably go quicker than an in-person meeting. So give the kids clear expectations of what they will be doing in their time, especially if you have a project or an activity you want to complete during this one meeting. You want to let them know how far you want to get. It's also important for the girls to know a way to get your attention. And depending on the virtual format you're using, that will vary a little bit. With GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting, they have a hand raising button where the kids can click it, and then the speaker or the leader of the meeting knows that someone requires their attention. All of these platforms have a chat option, so the kids could put a note in the chat option, where in Zoom you may want them just to simply raise their hand, and you can see that. We don't want 10 girls trying to speak at once and try to get attention, sort of lose focus that way. So have some type of clear plan so the kids know how to get your attention. Another way with them, I know Elena touched on the materials a little bit earlier, letting the parents know ahead of time is important so they can have everything ready. You wouldn't want to start a meeting and then have the kids kind of scatter to go look for something. If they have the materials from home, they can have that all ready to go. It's not wasting any time. If you are going to have a no contact drop off option for their porches, the kids might be able to make something specifically for this drop off. If they have a box, they could put it on the porch that they've decorated, so to put their materials in that box, and that could be one of their first virtual meeting activities. So it's something fun for them to do, and they'll be using it for these virtual purposes. Another thing to remember, again, touching on the time, if in-person meetings have a regularly scheduled date and time, if the parents still want to follow that, that would be a nice plan, because they've already sort of planned for that time period to be a Girl Scouts dedicated time. If it doesn't work, finding an alternative time that works for everyone would be beneficial also. All right, I think I'm all set. I'm going to pass it off to Kira.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. So you want to think about when you want to hold your meetings. You and your girls may want to meet more or less frequently than normal. There is a possibility with people, working from home and everybody's doing school from home right now, that you may have different meeting times than you did before. Also consider setting up new troop rules or troop agreements, since virtual is a whole different kind of setting. Your meeting speed may change. Some activities will move faster, while others may need more details since you can't assist in person. Also, try practicing ahead of time with yourself or a friend, so that way you can feel comfortable. I find that always helps me. We all miss each other, and if you can, try and make sure everybody, has their videos on so you can all see each other. So it's important to remember that while this is new and different and maybe a little scary, it's okay. We're all in this together, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I think your girls just want to enjoy having time and being together. Of course, if you have any concerns or hesitations about the virtual programming, you can reach out to your volunteer services person, and we can help coach you through it. And we're all in this together.
Well, thank you, everybody. And I wanted to add a little bit that Elena mentioned earlier about Google Hangouts and Microsoft Teams. Both of them can share screens as well. You can share anything you like on both of those platforms. So there is that. And I wanted to see at this point if there were any questions that anybody wanted to ask. Please feel free to unmute yourselves. You should be able to go right ahead and do it, or pop it in the chat box, whatever one you prefer. And if you don't have any questions at this moment, you can always email either your volunteering person or just email us at volunteering@girlscoutsney.org. We can always help you there as well. I'll give it another minute, though. People might be typing questions furiously. Well, thank you, Cindy. Not seeing any questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording on this. Mary Smith, did you have something that you wanted to add? I saw you flash up on the screen for a minute.
No, I'm just playing with the buttons. Thank you. This was good.
That's a good thing. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.